Let's look at a receiver who is shining right now, Field, at training camp for the Browns. We know that Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham Jr. will lead the headlines. But right now, it's the second-year wideout from Michigan. Hard to believe he was a sixth-round draft pick, Donovan Peoples-Jones, who is catching a lot of eyes through the first week of camp. What do you make of his value?
First of all, good to see. And as we know, oftentimes the biggest leap for a player in his career comes between his rookie and second season. Player has a full off season underneath his belt, has a better understanding of what's incumbent upon that player to be productive week in and week out. And to your point, it was a surprise that he went in the sixth round last year. Many thought he'd be much closer to a third or fourth round pick at one point during the pre-draft process. So I think it's probably difficult to envision him having a huge fantasy successful season this year because of OBJ, because of Jarvis Landry and Austin Hooper and Kareem Hunt and Harrison Bryant and potentially David Njoku. But as we also know, looking ahead, there is some discussion about how the Browns are going to handle their wide receiver contracts in future years. Eventually, they're going to sign Baker Mayfield to an extension. Eventually, they're going to sign someone like Wyatt Teller to an extension and Denzel Ward to an extension. And what happens when you sign all these really talented players, the contracts that aren't cheap, by the way, is that you're going to have to make other difficult decisions. So it's possible that a year or two from now, the Browns are really, really relying upon DPJ to be a big part of their passing game.
With that in mind, value to DPJ deeper in a draft in a keeper league, perhaps?
Yeah, I was going to say, if you play either a keeper league or a dynasty league, that's the ticket right there. And I think that sometimes the best pickups you make in a dynasty league are those that you get no value out of potentially for a year or two. So he's amongst those sort of stash names that I'm keeping an eye on right now. Not saying the Browns are definitely going to have to force their hand at wide receiver next off season, but if you just do a little bit of a numbers game and look at some of the contracts that are coming up, at some point you have to recognize that tough business decisions could come, and one of the players that might be called upon to fill a larger role would be Peoples-Jones.